Yesterday we talked to you, you didn't know who you were going to play, and now you know. What are the things that I want to say impress you about what the Grizzlies do and how they play?
Well, they're a really talented team. They've built a foundation over the last few years through player development, through really smart drafting, investment, and they're really well coached. So you throw all that together, and it means we've got to execute to beat them. We've seen them a lot the last couple of years. Obviously, the play-in game, and 4 times each last year and this year. Very athletic team. They're number 1 in the league in blocked shots and steals, and they get to loose balls. And once they do that, they're off to the races. They're a great transition team. So we got to be really sharp. We can't let them just get out running like crazy off of turnovers or bad shots. We got to be we got to connect the game at both ends and be really sharp.
Is it a little bit surprising that Memphis, which 2 years ago was just another team, this year they're the second best record in the NBA? To see a team go so far so fast?
Well, if you if you paid attention, you could see what was happening through their player development. Ja right away was great, but he's gotten a lot better. Most improved player this year. You get guys like Brooks and Clark, who are young players who have grown by leaps and bounds. So I just really admire what Memphis has done organizationally. They've drafted really well. I mean, Bain, 30th pick in the draft. If you want to do a redraft now from 2 years later, he's in the top 5. So they've selected well, they've developed well. They've just run things really efficiently, and it's showing up in the results.
Starting on the road, Steve, how much do you guys kind of like that to take 1 of 2 and then shift the home court advantage? You have a chance to do that right away when you go to Memphis.
Well, we'd rather be at home, but we're not. So, we look at this as a chance to get out to a quick start. We're rested. It's kind of perfect in terms of the rhythm. Like, you don't want 9 days off, but you don't want 48 hours off. So to have kind of in between there, about 4 days from our last game to the next one, is good timing for us. We feel like our players will be in rhythm, and we've had a couple of days to prepare now, and we'll be ready to go.
These guys are either number 1 or number 2 in the league in offensive rebounding and also causing turnovers, 2 areas of potential trouble for you guys. So have you been addressing that?
Yes, we have.
Box out lessons.
The rebounding has really hurt us in our losses to these guys. They're probably the best in the league at crashing the offensive glass. So it's going to take all 5 guys, boxing out, being engaged on the boards. And they're number 1 in block shots. Our spacing has to be good. They've just done a really good job of creating turnovers and long rebounds and tough shots that lead to transition. And when Ja gets going downhill, he's pretty tough to stop. He's got shooting on the perimeter coming with him. So they're a hell of a team, and we're going to have to execute well to win.
With the offensive rebounding, is it more than just when they get an offensive rebound? Isn't it sometimes that they're very talented at doing that? There's ways of, even if you're boxing out, they can sometimes beat you.
Yeah, they got really bouncy, athletic guys, between Clark and Jackson. Adams is just a load in there, so he's kind of taking up space in the paint. And when he's doing that, it opens up lanes for other guys to crash. Ja is obviously a tremendous athlete, so you give him a runway for an offensive board. He'll be there. So you've got to be diligent. You got to hit bodies. You got to be really sharp, and you have to accept the fact that they're going to get some of those. But as long as we're making that effort every single time, we'll be able to limit them, and that's going to be key.
What impressed you the most about how Memphis came back continually in that series. They were always seemingly down in the fourth quarter and made runs to end up winning and taking that series.
Yeah, they're a poised team. You know, they're well coached and poised, and there were several games in that series where they were down, you know, double figures in the fourth quarter, and they stayed with it, and they created extra possessions and knocked down big shots. So, you know, they have the second best record in the league for a reason. They're a hell of a team.
All right, on Zoom, Jared Greenberg, go ahead.
Hey, Rick. Couple for you here, Coach, if you don't mind. Real quick, you know, we talked, obviously you didn't want to address the days off, you know, closing out the series, but how much were you able to take advantage of having these 3 days off and watching Memphis and Minnesota as they go to battle?
Well, it's helpful. You know, our players were able to come in and get shots up and get work in the training room and in the weight room, and you know, without having to hold inter-squad scrimmages because we've got a week off. You know, 4 days is kind of ideal, really. So you in theory, you get to keep your rhythm, but you have a little time to prepare. We did a lot of preparation for Memphis yesterday in case they won, knowing the quick turnaround, and you know, so that helped us get to a little bit of a head start. And then we had a good practice today, and now we'll fly out. So we feel like we've had, you know, a really ideal kind of prep time going into game one.
Second question. I know later as the series went on, Memphis really went away from Steven Adams, and you talked just moments ago about how much he has hurt you on the glass. And, you know, obviously back in his OKC days, you guys have had some unbelievable battles with Steven. When you guys go small, do you anticipate that a team like Memphis will try and go big and try and get Steven Adams back involved in this series, unlike the previous series?
I think we just try to be prepared for everything, Jared. You know, they have a lot of options. They have different lineups that they can go to. It's one of their strengths is their versatility. They can play Jackson at the 5, can play Clark at the 5, or stay big with Adams or Tillman. So I think we really have to prepare ourselves, you know, and get our team in the best position to win, and then adapt according to whoever they're playing.
All right, Teresa Walker.
Steve, you mentioned the youth and how Memphis has developed this team. This is the second time you'll have played the Grizzlies in the semifinals. The last iteration of the Grizzlies was a much older, experienced team. How much can playing in this round maybe help a young team, grow up under the pressure of the postseason, and maybe help a team squeeze out, develop faster than maybe ordinarily they might?
Yeah, I mean, the roles are kind of reversed a little bit from 2015. You know, we were the younger team then; they were the more experienced one. You know, now you look at their team. I doubt there's a single player from 15 who's still on the team for Memphis. So new team, new era. We've got, you know, 4 of our main guys from 15 still here, so we've got some continuity, but we're mixing in our own development and youth, and so, you know, every team's got its own set of circumstances. But I think the playoffs are where teams really forge their identity. The Warriors had to do it, you know, really in 13 and 14. You know, before that 15 season when we won it, gaining that experience in 13 and 14 was really important for the players. So Memphis is in a similar boat right now, you know, gaining that experience, feeling what it's like to be on the road and trailing in the fourth quarter. And they've done a really good job of, you know, advancing and getting to this stage. And, you know, it's now it continues, and the more experience you get, the better.
Evan Barnes, go ahead.
Steve, you mentioned obviously the playing game last year being another game you guys played each other really close. Is it such an age disparity? Do you see this as kind of like the stages for perhaps a bigger rivalry or matchup, not
I think rivalries are really formed in the playoffs. You sort of have to have multiple meetings for a rivalry to really form. Whether you think back to Lakers, Celtics, or Bulls, Pistons back in the late '80s, early '90s. For those of you who are younger, I guess I'm going to have to find a new analogy. But I don't know. We've played so many different teams now in the playoffs. Over the last 7 years, we don't really feel like we have a rival. We're just trying to be able to continue to succeed in the playoffs and give ourselves the best chance to win. We've had a lot of success, and it's great to be back after a 3-year absence, 2-year absence, and the third year being back in it. So I don't think we look at this as a rivalry. We just look at Memphis as a rising young team that's really talented, and it's going to be a great challenge to try to beat them.
Looking at the athleticism on the Grizzlies roster, how much of a premium did that place on your guys like GP2 and JK and Wiggs? How important is that in this series, you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're more athletic team on the wings than Denver was, and so you're looking at not just on the wings but in the backcourt with Ja, and so you got a different approach. They're not going to post up much. Denver posted up, time and again, so completely different matchup. The athleticism that Memphis has will necessitate us being super alert on the glass in transition. We can't be a count behind, and so we'll definitely need Wiggs and Gary and their speed and their athleticism to counter that, and JK as well. So that's what's fun about the playoffs. Every matchup's different. Every player's just got to stay ready.
Peyton has been statistically very effective against Ja this year. I'm playing defense on him. Does Gary loom even larger than usual in your plans for this series because of Ja?
I think Gary really played so well against Denver. A real key, obviously in Game 5, but also Game 3, knocking down shots, defending. His pick and roll defense at the end of the Denver Game 5 was amazing, and we're going to need that against Ja for sure. So Gary will see plenty of that matchup, among others. And Gary is, I think, a player who's built for the playoffs. It's his kind of game, so I'm excited to play him.
His three ball, is it the improvement? Has it surprised you, and how do you feel about it now?
Well, he worked really hard on it in the summer. He was making them in the summer league last year. He was making them in training camp. At some point, as long as the guy's doing it in actual NBA games, you begin to trust it, and we trust it. He shot a good percentage, I think 36 or so for the year, and has hit a lot of big ones. He's unafraid. He never turns one down if he's open. And so I have a lot of faith in Gary and his shooting.
Right, we had one more on Zoom for an iPhone, but there's no name, so if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, it is me, Ray. I'm in the Denver airport. So.
Oh, dang it. Okay.
Yeah, I know. How do you think Kuminga kind of fits this series, and what does he have to do to kind of like get more minutes, essentially? Like, what are his keys in this type of matchup to succeed?
Well, I think what Monty just mentioned, just the athleticism that JK has, is important for us. If he's out there on Clark or Jackson, or even a wing like Brooks, I mean, he's got to use his gifts. He's got to come in with great energy and great anticipation and make sure he's running the floor both ways and following the game plan and rebounding. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the league. So that's what we're going to ask of JK.
All right, enjoy your direct flight to Memphis.
I feel for you. I feel especially for John Dickinson, who apparently has 3 flights today. Raymond told me. So I'm sure you guys. What's that?
That's just bad booking.
SFO, Salt Lake, Atlanta, Memphis.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys are all rooting for opponents with large airport hubs. That's what it comes down to with you. Yeah.